Imagine you are building an automation framework and everything is working smooth, and suddenly your tests start failing randomly. Adding code to the automation framework has always been a tough task to do, and you are spending more and more time in fixing these issues rather coding. You must be thinking, what went wrong? This is exactly what happens when your automation framework has not been designed with solid foundation. In this series, I am going to show you how you can prevent these headaches by mastering the solid design principles. The 5 key roles which every automation tester must know to build robust, scalable, and maintainable framework. From writing cleaner tests to building framework that can grow with your project, these solid principles can help you grow your automation skills to next level. So whether you are starting just now or you are already experienced, this whole series is for you. In this first video, we are starting with introduction to solid principles and why it's essential for test automation, and how following these principles can save your hours and hours of effort and frustration while building any test automation framework. Let's dive into the first principle, which is single responsibility principle, and how this can save a lot of time when you implement this first principle in your test automation code. Okay, so let's start solid principles. So solid principles, if you see, each of the character is acronym for SRE, which is single responsibility principle. O is an acronym for OCP, which is open closed principle. L is acronym for LSP, which is LISCO substitution principle. I is ISP, which is interface substitution principle. And D is DIP, which is dependency inversion principle. So we will be going through each one of them one by one. So don't worry if you don't know or aware of these. I'll explain each one of them one by one. So let's start with single responsibility principle. So here, if you see, I have divided this principle to understand it better in 5 different categories. First is, we will understand what is definition, and we will take one scenario through which we are going to understand these principles. So, and what is the problem before we apply this each of the principles. Like in this case, we are going to see what problems we are facing before we apply single responsibility principle, and we will also see what are the solutions, like how we can implement SRP and how it is going to resolve our problem. Next is the benefits. So we will also see what benefits it is driving for us. So let's go ahead for SRP. Let's understand the definition. So the SRP definition, if you see, it says a class should only have one reason to change. That means it should only have one job or responsibility. Okay, so what does this mean basically? So if you consider one home is there, and in a single room there is kitchen also, dining table is also there, bedroom is also there. So how that room will look? It will be more of messy, right? So how about if we divide each one of the rooms in separate rooms? Like if we want kitchen, then whatever activity is related to kitchen is going to go in the kitchen room, and whatever activity is related to other rooms, we are going to separate each room out in that whole house, and that is going to give us more and more clarity, and also we will be able to understand better the whole room, right? So similarly in here also, SRP says that each class in your software development lifecycle or your application should have single responsibility. So for example, we'll see this also in an example. So let's go ahead and understand one scenario. So let's suppose you have a user class, okay, that handles everything related to users. Okay, so for example, storing user details. If there you are supposed to be storing the user details, there is one method in that user class itself. We'll see this using code also, so don't worry if you are not understanding till this point also. So we are going to have validate user data, that is also stored in class, user class. Saving users to the database, that is also in there. So everything related to the user functionality you have put in single class. So that's where what will be the problem, we'll see that also. So what is the problem? So the first problem which you will see, that user class becomes cluttered with too many responsibilities, right? So what are those too many responsibilities? For example, we have assigned that to send welcome email, also saving users to the database, also validating that user, also whether user has entered correct username or not, email or not. So all those responsibilities of validating user data also is getting handled by same user class. So let's understand with a code example. So let's see one code example of SRP before we are applying this single responsibility principle. So over here, if you see, one user class is there, and in that user class there is name, there is email, there is validate user data also is there, there is public boolean validate is there. So what we are doing, we have method to validate the user data, we have method to save the user to database, we have method to send the welcome email. So what will be the problem basically over here? This says that any change to email sending logic. So if we are going to send or if we are going to change something in email sending logic, that is going to require to modify the whole user class, right? And potentially this can implement, or this can lead to bug in the system. So that's why it is more of, we are doing everything in one place, and that's why it is more prone to have bugs or issues going further, because we are making too many changes and the one class is handling so many things. So if we are going to change one thing, then other thing may also get impacted. So that is the problem statement which SRP is going to handle. So what SRP says over here, it says break down the user class into multiple classes. So instead of having all these things in one single class, SRP says instead of using all these things in single class, you can break down the whole user class into multiple classes, such that each class is going to handle single responsibility. So how come that is going to handle the single responsibility? We'll understand that using one code. So over here, if you see, now we have the same code, we have changed the same code. This code was there, user where everything was there in single class. Now we have modified this code into multiple classes. So now this user class is going to have only email, numbers, and getters and setters. Okay. Now we have another class which is user validator. So what it is going to have? It is going to have all the validation related logic. So let's suppose user has entered wrong email, wrong username, or something like that. This class is going to handle all those validation logic. And if something is which is not as per the business logic, it is going to handle all those rejections. Okay, so this user validator is now going to handle all those validations part. Another thing is, another class we have created is for saving the user. Okay, so whatever user is going to push into the repository, that saving part is going to handle by this user repository class. And here we have one save method. This method is going to have the database save logic, which is going to handle the saving part of the user. Another is email service. We have divided into single class of email service, which is going to be responsible for sending welcome email. So now if we are going to change anything in validation logic, we need not to touch the functionalities of this user repository or saving logic or sending welcome email logic. Right? So with this approach, basically what we did, we had divided the responsibility of multiple things into single thing, and that's why we are now able to maintain it better. And if something new comes up in the user class, we are going to accommodate that as well, right? So now what are the benefits of this? Basically simplified code maintenance. So if we are going to change something in validation logic, or we are going to change something in welcome email service logic, then easily we can maintain that, and we can go and just make changes in those code part, and rest of them is not going to be, we need not to worry about rest of the code, right? Reduces the risk of bugs, because we are not making changes at each and every place. It is not going to affect different areas of user class. Enhances the code readability. So now we are using each class for different actions. So easily we can understand, okay, user validator class is there. So this must be getting used for something related to user validation part. User repository, so basically we must be using it for the saving of the users. Email service, so this is something to do with the email service. So this way it is more easier to understand, easier to maintain, and easier to reduce the risk of bug. Okay, so this seems very easy to understand, right? SRP simply means a single responsibility principle, which means if any particular class is handling too many responsibilities, then we need to simply break it down into multiple classes so that it can be easily maintainable, reduces the risk of the bugs, and also it can easily be readable. So now that you understand the power of single responsibility principle and how it can clean up your test automation framework, what's next? Well, imagine a situation where your automation framework can grow without breaking the existing feature in your framework. Sounds like a dream, right? In the next video, we are going to understand what is open closed principle and how it can help you to make your automation framework open for extension but closed for modification. So with this principle, basically you can grow your framework without breaking your existing implementations. So don't forget to subscribe the channel and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you are getting the next video notification as soon as it gets published, and share the video to your friends. And if you have any particular comment, please drop the comment in the comment box. See you in the next one.